used to sit with Al-Imam Malik seeking knowledge from him. فكان يجلس يتلقى العلم على الإمام مالك رحمه الله ويروي عنه الموطأ. And Al-Imam Shafi'i used to narrate Al-Muwatta from Al-Imam Malik. Al-Muwatta, the famous book of Al-Imam Malik. فكان يحفظ ما يسمع بسرعة. And it's mentioned how Al-Imam Shafi'i, when studying with Al-Imam Malik, used to memorize quickly. Quickly he used to memorize it all. وَكَانَ شَابًا صَغِيرًا. And at that time he was a youth at that time. فَتَعَجَّبَ مِنْهُ شَيْخُهُ الْإِمَامُ مَالِكُ. So Al-Imam Malik was highly impressed. He was highly impressed with what he saw from Al-Imam Shafi'i and his ability in fast memorization. فَأَوْصَاهُ بِهَذِهِ الْوَصِيَّةِ. So then Al-Imam Malik gave him this advice: إِنِّي أَرَى اللَّهَ قَدْ أَلْقَى عَلَى قَلْبِكَ نُورًا فَلَا تُطْفِئْهُ بِظُلْمَةِ الْمَعْصِيَةِ. That indeed I see Allah has cast upon your heart a light, so do not extinguish it with the darkness of sinning. I see Allah has cast upon you a light, so do not distinguish it with the darkness of sins. So that is the first point he mentions regarding the evil consequences of sinning. It deprives you of knowledge. How is that connected to the theme that we are discussing in this conference? The theme which is protecting yourselves, communities, societies in these challenging times. If we are deprived of knowledge because we are committing all of these sins, then a lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding and a prevalence of ignorance, is that going to do anything to protect us in society? Is that going to do anything to rectify our society? So if we want protection for ourselves, our families, we want rectification in society, then know about the impact of this. Sinning, it causes, as one of its causes, a deprivation of knowledge. If you have a deprivation of knowledge because the community are sinners, then you are going to be deprived in your affairs of the religion, deprived in your ability to practice your religion properly, deprived in your ability to build your communities and societies because of the overwhelming sinning that has taken over, and therefore deprived the communities of knowledge and understanding, and that is only going to bring harm. It is not going to bring goodness for that community. The second point from the consequences of sinning, وَمِنْهَا حِرْمَانُ الرِّزْقِ. That sinning, it causes a deprivation in rizq, in your provisions. In your provisions, they are depleted as a consequence of sinning. وفي المسند إن العبد ليحرم الرزق بالذنب يصيبه. It is mentioned in Al-Musnad. What is Al-Musnad? There are many books known as Al-Musnad. Which one is this one? How do you know? It doesn't say, it just says Fil Musnad. And there are many books known as Al-Musnad. How do we know this one is the Musnad of Al-Imam Ahmad? So it could be any then.
Generally known.
There is a principle like that, or not principle, but it's something which is understood, There are certain titles that are understood and they are prevalent. It is the default. It is almost like istilah. If you say the musnad, the default is the musnad of Al-Imam Ahmad. That's the default. And there are many others. But the default, if you hear a scholar say, Fil Musnad, there are many books which are Musnad this, Musnad that, Musnad this, many. But the default when you hear somebody say, Wa Fil Musnad, they are referring to the Musnad of Al-Imam Ahmad. It mentions there, indeed a servant is deprived of provision because of a sin that he committed. That indeed a servant is deprived of provisions because of a sin that he committed. وَكَمَا, this is all Ibn al-Qayyim. وَكَمَا أَنَّ تَقْوَى اللَّهِ مَجْلَبَةٌ لِلرِّزْقِ فَتَرْكُ التَّقْوَى مَجْلَبَةٌ لِلْفَقْرِ فَمَا اسْتُجْلِبَ رِزْقُ اللَّهِ بِمِثْلِ تَرْكِ الْمَعَاصِي. So just like taqwa, it brings about your provision. It is a means of attaining provision. Then abandonment of taqwa, not having taqwa, it will therefore do the opposite. It will bring upon you poverty. Having taqwa of Allah, which means fulfilling the commandments of Allah upon light, upon knowledge, desiring the reward from Allah, and staying away from the sins and the wrongs upon knowledge, fearing the punishment of Allah. Taqwa, when you have that, it is a means of bringing rizq to you. But when you abandon it, then the opposite, the rizq does not come and therefore you are in poverty. And then Ibn al-Qayyim says, there is nothing better that causes for the rizq to come your way other than or similar to the abandonment of sins. Abandon sinning, and that is from the greatest method of rizq coming your way. But you do not abandon sinning and you persist upon that, then that is from the means of depriving you of rizq, and instead therefore being upon poverty. So in this one, Shaykh Al-Fawzan says, وَمِنْ آثَارِ الْمَعَاصِي أَنْ يُحْرَمَ الْعَاصِي الرِّزْقِ. From the consequences of sinning is that a person is deprived of sustenance, of provisions, just like in this narration, إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَيُحْرَمُ الرِّزْقَ بِذَنْبٍ أو بِالذَّنْبِ يُصِيبُهُ. That maybe a servant is deprived of provisions because of a sin that he commits. And then Shaykh Al-Fawzan says, وَقَوْلُهُ, قول Ibn al-Qayyim, تَقْوَى اللَّهِ مَجْلَبَةٌ لِلرِّزْقِ. That having the taqwa of Allah, it brings about provision for you. كَمَا فِي قَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى. Just like it is mentioned in the statement of Allah, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. That whomsoever has the taqwa of Allah, then Allah will make him a way out from whatever that affair may be, whatever that difficulty may be, whatever that situation may be. Whomsoever has the taqwa of Allah, then Allah will make him a way out from that and will provide him with